Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where I'm joined, as always, with the Commander Clash crew, starting with the Grixis multi-format master, Krim. How's it going, Krim?
It goes well. Just currently looking at as we film this, there's spoilers just pouring in for Kamigawa.
Put the phone away, Krim.
It's so
Put
cool.
it away.
This Kamigawa
Don't make
set
me
is
take it away.
amazing. Okay,
You're
so yeah,
ruining the
I'm
immersion.
just
No one knows when we record this.
Oh,
Yeah.
right,
Now
right.
they know exactly.
We're in a time bubble.
Yes.
We have to talk about negative things today.
I'm excited. It feels good just to be excited in the world of Magic.
Yes. Generically excited. Perfect.
Yes, generically.
All right, next up, we got the multi-format Panharmonicon All-Star, Seth, better known than Saffron Olive. How's it going, Seth?
Not too bad. How are you, Tomer?
Doing well. And then I'm joined by the site owner and person who's telling you that Secret Rendezvous is a multi-format staple. It's Richard.
Okay, it is definitely not a multi-format staple.
Yet.
That's for Seth. Seth's play Secret Rendezvous against the odds, please. In Modern, I'll stick
do what
to
I
play
In
can.
Modern, you're gonna
Commander.
lose the game if you cast that card. You actually just lose the game if you cast that card.
All right, and then finally, hello. I'm the person who keeps trying to make Cauldron happen in Commander. My name's Domer, and together we are the Commander Clash crew, or something like that. I don't know, maybe like a Voltron thingy. We're working on that. We're working on the new intro. All right.
We're supposed to do
today's-
JoJo poses, dude. The really
JoJo
absurd
poses?
Yeah, like you know how they all do really hardcore poses that make no sense posture wise, but that's the way they pose. So. And we are the Commander Clash crew. It's like, dude, how's your back bending that way? Don't worry about it.
Well, maybe we'll figure out a pose for that thing, or maybe like a Ginyu Force thing, you know?
Yeah. I
For
would
Dragon
just love
Ball
to see
fans.
Seth do any of those poses, really. But yeah.
It'll happen. Like and subscribe if you want to see Seth do a Ginyu pose with us.
I don't even know what that
50K
is.
special.
I don't even know what that is.
That's the best
Done.
part. We just say the name
Yeah.
and see what Seth interprets it as, and then just have him do it.
All right, so today what we're going to be talking about is a spicy topic. Usually we focus on internet-friendly stuff like tier lists and hot topics like, is Cartographer's
there.
Hawk a
Oh,
good
wait.
card?
Different hot topic. Okay.
Yes. The spicy ones that make the community all riled up. This time, we're going to be talking about whether or not the Commander format is getting faster, and is it getting too fast?
furious.
So we didn't scour the internet for all the data points out there, like look at every single content creator's games and figure out if they've been slowing down. But we have a pretty large data point, and it's more relevant to us personally, and that's the Commander Clash data point. We as in Richard, went back and found out when the average turn ended, or when the game ended for every single season, because we've been doing this for 11 seasons, 6 years of Commander Clash, so a lot of games that we've all been playing together with like a semi-rotating cast. And we want to find out, are our games getting faster? Over the 6 years, have our games gotten faster? And we're just going to get this out of the way first. The answer is yes. The answer is definitively yes. If we look back, starting with season 2, the average turn length in 2016 for us was 13.9 turns, which is pretty long. That's kind of crazy. Then season 4, 13.4.
So it's full turn, right? So if everyone takes a turn, that counts as one, right? So it's turn cycles that we're counting, because 14 does sound very large. So you could theoretically have made 14 land drops if you played a land every turn. So
And
that
Krim
was-
still
what you
had
mean.
Krim still
Don't-
had 2.
don't know what you mean.
I
What's
guess
that?
Krim
What is
wasn't
that,
there at that
14
point,
land
but if he was,
Okay, so yeah, that's I guess an important clarification, because if it was somebody went first, that would be their turn 14. They could end the game before everybody else that had their turn 14, so that wouldn't be counted. So we might shave off a turn or something on average. But yeah, you could see a slope. Season 12, 13.9. Season 4, 13.4. Season 6, 12.8. Season 8, 12.1. Season 9, 11.8. Season 10, 11. And season 11, 11. So you can we'll have a graph in available on, if you go to the website on the article, you'll see we'll post a graph there. You can see a very specific downward slope that started at 14 and has now gone into an average of 11. So the question is our playgroup getting faster? The definitive answer is yes. It is getting faster for our particular playgroup. That's not necessarily going to be the same for everybody's playgroup, but we do have a lot of games, and we've been playing for 6 years, so we can clearly say that this is an occurrence that we've been seeing. And a lot of people have been saying the exact same thing, right? That is the common discourse online, that the format is getting faster. And having some data to actually point to is really important. And here we go. So my question first to the group is, were you shocked by this prediction or by this data entry that it got faster by essentially 2 turns?
I mean, no. When every creature, every threat does 15 things just upon cast, not counting what it does when it hits the board. The threats have gotten better. Everything's gotten better, right? So naturally the games would end faster. So many things snowball now. Things aren't incremental card advantage over time. They're just if you don't deal with this right now, you're dead.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised either. It feels like the games are getting faster, and I think it also lines up with how Commander Clash has evolved, sort of, because in the early seasons we had some really strict budgets sometimes, which maybe slowed down the games, and we've had less budgets recently. I think we've also maybe gotten better at building decks. I know when I started, and I think Richard as well, when we first started playing Commander Clash, we had never really played Commander before, and now we've been doing it for 6 years, and you learn about a lot about card optimization and which cards are good and aren't good. So I think that's probably part of it too, is just us improving as Commander deck builders and players over the course of that time.
So I think it's so back when we first played Commander, I was the most hardcore spike ever, meta master, in standard. I can't even do combat math in season 11 now, so my actual Magic playing skills have gone off the rails.
Washed up.
But exactly, right? But the deck building has gotten better. But so I actually collected all this data by watching the games. Right? And by watching the games, I fast forward to the end to see what turn it was. And what struck me was, so the data shows every year we get half a turn faster, right? Or 0.6 or something like that. It's pretty consistent across all the different ban lists, across the different cast members. Some of these seasons had Jen on, had Tom on, had a guest season where we just had random people. And then also the new cards that come in. But the most striking thing is when I watch the older games, we could not close out games. It would go down to 2 players, and those 2 players would play for an additional 10 turns, right? And all the games ended up in a 1v1, people top decking and trying to actually kill each other. Whereas by the time we got to the later seasons, the game would end with multiple people at the table still, right? There would be one big combat or one combo or something, game ends. But having turn 25, turn 30 and something like that in season 2 was not uncommon. So that is an interesting part. There's no 1v1 aspect today, but back then it was a real thing. You had to 1v1 someone with your your 100 card deck and top deck and gain some incremental advantage. So the ability to close out games, I think, has changed dramatically.
That's really interesting, because one other thing that I wanted to point out for the viewers listening is that Commander Clash is not your average play group. Our main shtick is that we come up with gimmick decks every single week. We will have heavy theme restrictions, we'll do an anime week where every single card is going to be a reference to an anime show or something, like BoJack Horseman, for example. Yeah, anime. Or we did like a video game week, or we did like extreme budget week, or we did stuff like that where our card pool is severely restricted, and I think that might contribute to the fact that maybe we're restricted on our finishers. Like if we need like a JoJo reference for to have a finisher, and we found like some obscure card that nobody plays, it's gonna have a harder time to close out the game. But like we've been doing that consistently throughout all the years. But still, it sounds, Richard, you're saying that basically like we still have better ways to close out the games more recently than when we started.
And we're also, our decks are a lot jankier nowadays. So if we actually look back on the early seasons, like we had to go play all the quote unquote normal commanders. Like we had to play the Breyas back then. We had to play the Enchantress decks and like the real like hardcore Voltron decks and things like that, because that was like the first time we experienced them. Nowadays we're like equipping rocks and crap, right? But even then we're still closing the game out like 2 turns, 3 turns faster, because you have that Toski, or you have the Dockside Extortionist or whatever to like just make your janky finishers actually close out the game. Whereas before we'd spend 8 mana drawing a card or something, untap, tap, 8 mana, draw a card, play something, maybe get some advantage. So yeah, we've somehow gotten jankier over time, but our decks have gotten a lot better because of the support cards.
I mean, Richard, didn't we just come off a season where I've been attacking people's clocks the most?
That's a you thing, Grim.
That's a Grim.
Oh, maybe that's a Grim thing.
Not everybody's going for that.
I found a way to play even. It's that if you've seen The Office, where Michael Scott is like, "Well, I ran a marathon, so I drank even less water and ate." So I found a way to even have less win conditions and troll harder. So yeah.
We're optimizing it.
I really don't think this is just us though either. Like when I heard we were doing this podcast topic, I went and looked at EDH Rec, and I went back and found in the Wayback Machine the very first month that EDH Rec was a thing back in 2017, and looked at the top 100 most played cards, and it was pretty interesting to see like in the most played cards you had like Nicol Bolas, Planeswalker, Rite of Replication, Prime Speaker, Zagana, and these are cards that were really expensive and kind of the battle cruiser finishers of Magic that were really heavily played. And this was 5 years ago, 2017, roughly 5 years ago. So lines up about with the time frame of what we're talking about with Commander Clash. Those cards have went down in play a ton. Like if you look at any of those, like half of what they were played before, 75% decrease. On the other end, if you look at the cards that are seeing way more play, it's like Rampant Growths, it's Farseeks. Those are cards that have like doubled in play in that same time frame. So I feel like the entire format has just changed, in part because we keep getting more powerful cards like Dockside and Arcane Signet, and all those cards didn't exist, and in part because the theory is improving. Like people are realizing, like Rampant Growth has been around forever, but 5 years ago people were playing Explosive Vegetation most of the time because they thought that was better than Rampant Growth. And now like the theory of Commander has changed, so everyone's playing the 2 mana ramp spells. I actually calculated the average mana value of the top 50 most played cards, and in 2017 it was 2.8, the 50 most played cards on EDH Rec. Today it's 2.24, so that's a pretty big drop in that last 5-year period. So I think that plays into it like as well. So even though we're, I guess, talking about our experience on Commander Clash, I think this is mostly a format wide thing. Like this isn't just like we're some weird play group and everyone else is playing the same rate that they were 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah. And that's why we selected this topic. Like, this is a recurring conversation that the community's been having for a while now, is that the format's getting faster. And that's why we picked it. We were like, well, is it getting faster for us? Like, is this a phenomenon that we're experiencing over on Commander Clash in our unique bubble? And the answer is resoundingly yes for us. So, yeah, it's definitely at least from what we're hearing from the people who are mentioning it, that that it appears to be that the format is getting faster, and we do have data points like EDH Rec showing that if you're lowering the curve and everything, and your closers are getting more and more potent, then it's easy to deduce that it's getting faster for a lot of people, or at least the people who are online.
I mean, yeah, right? Like we have, there's multiple reasons for this, right? Like example, with so much data out there now, like when Commander started, I don't think there was an EDH rec. So it wasn't like I can just pull up a list, kind of base it off that. I would just build the deck, right? But now, like, and it's like, well, EDH rec has like card synergies for this deck. These 5 new cards are just printed. It's so easy to make an optimized version of the deck now. So it's just like any format in Magic, to be honest with you. Like, because Magic as a whole, like we kind of touched up on this on the weekly podcast that we also do with Seth, Richard, and I, right? Where Magic as a whole has just been power crept. So everything's gotten faster. Everything's a snowball threat. So because of that, that'll naturally bleed into Commander, right? With Modern Horizons changing things. So
yeah. So I actually didn't want to talk about what you think the causes are for the increased speed. We touched upon it. We talked about, Krim, you just brought up EDH Rec, the extra knowledge that we have that we just didn't have before. And I can attest to that. I started in 2011 when I was trying to get, deck ideas and stuff. We had a site called Tapped Out. It still exists. It's still trucking along. But basically, like, you would Google search, like, Commander and then EDH, and then you would get a Google result of, like, a bunch of tapped out lists, which are just, people's own lists. But it was not even close to what EDH Rec offers, because EDH Rec doesn't let you just, like, look up a list. It can give you lists. It has plenty of lists that you can look up, but when you type in a commander, it will be like, these are the newest cards from the set that fit in this commander. These are the best cards or the most unique cards that this commander deck runs. These are the staples. These are the most played cards. They can give you sample deck lists. They can give you everything. And you can even filter by like budgets or archetypes. Like if you want to do Atraxa, Super Friends versus Infect versus Energy, you can filter through that. Like the amount of data you have available is way higher than what it was a decade ago when I started playing.
I mean, I think that plays a role in it. I think there's a ton of different factors that play some role in the format speeding up. You mentioned more data now, EDH Rec, stuff like that. I think Commander Theory improving, more new players joining the format, having more, we've seen this especially recently where there's not really tournament play. So if you're someone who has a bunch of these old cards, maybe a year, 2 years ago, you were going to a Legacy tournament or a Modern tournament, when now maybe the only format you have to play these cards in is Commander, so you're making the jump to the Commander format. But I think really the biggest one is the cards. Like, I think all those other things play into it, but I think the number one thing by a huge margin is Wizards started printing a ton of cards for Commander, and to print cards that actually sell, you got to make them good, or else no one's going to care about them. So I think that's the biggest thing is Arcane Signets and Dockside Extortionists. And 10 years ago we got a Commander precon set once a year. Then we got, now we have Commander precons every single set. We have stuff like Commander Legends, and most of the standard sets that they print are now Premier sets, they call them, that have a ton of Commander cards, like Smothering Tithe and stuff that obviously isn't geared for, 60 card standard play. It's stuff that's geared for Commander, and it's showing up in standard sets too. So I think the biggest reason is Wizards, like, focusing on the format and printing tons of new cards, like, specifically for it.
I mean, yeah, right. They've gone, like, this has kind of led to what the community has been asking for, to where, like, hey, Magic, can you stop making stuff for a Commander, right? And I don't know. I mean, a lot of stuff like this is just I like it. So I mean, I like the efficiency of a lot of these cards. And the cards that Seth has mentioned, like Smothering Tithe and things like that, I know I enjoy these kind of cards because a while ago, right, it was hard to play Magic and Commander because almost everything was like worded one for one. It was hard. You had to like dig deep to find these good cards that were just like good for against a whole pot of people. But now almost everything is worded with each opponent, or like, and I'm loving that. So I know that Blood Artist was like target opponent, but if Blood Artist were printed now, which there are tons of new Blood Artist things, it says each opponent. And I have been enjoying the shift to this. So the shift in power, it going faster, I've dug it.
I mean, at the same time, though, like, I remember 5 years ago, we would joke about any random, like, 7-drop, like, haha, it's, like, probably good in Commander, like, before we really started playing the format. And now, when I see a random 7-drop, I'm not thinking, oh, that's probably good in Commander. I'm thinking that probably sucks in Commander. When I'm looking for cards that are good in Commander, I'm looking for, like, oh, this thing, like, Dockside Extortionist, oh, this is 2 mana, and it does something insane right away. Like, those are the kind of cards that I'm looking for. So I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it is definitely true that like having cards for the format can be a good thing. I wouldn't want Wizards to stop printing cards for Commander altogether, but I feel like the kind of cards that they print has also changed. Like they're not printing like, hey, here's this expensive, 8 mana random dork, which is what we thought of as a Commander card before. Now they're printing a lot of really cheap, like explosive snowball-y type stuff for the format, which also like ends up speeding it up.
I think I sided with Krim here. So there are obvious mistakes that Wizards has printed, like Dockside or like maybe Free Spell Cycle. You can get into those. But I think net overall, the format is more fun. And like it is faster, but it does not feel faster, right? Like effectively the game ends at like maybe turn 10 or something. But back then it took you literally like 8 more turns to close it out. But now it like literally ends on that turn. Right. So I think like I don't know what you call it in Standard, like the important turn, right? Like where the game like makes or breaks. Like maybe it's like slightly faster, like maybe half a turn faster or something, right? But I don't feel like you can still play your garbage 6-drop, right? Because you played your rampant growth into your 4-mana ramp and then you played your 6-drop on turn 5, right? Like people are saying like, oh, you can't play Solemn because it's too slow. I'm like, then you can't play any creature whatsoever, right? You're playing CDH, you got to hold up your mana to counter, and no creature will make the cut, right? You're going to play a 2-card combo to end the game, right? But I just don't buy it, right? I think you can play your Salt, like, they play a 6-mana 10/10, that's still 4 combat steps to kill you, right? Like, it still feels the same speed to me. It just, like, actually finishes on time. Like, it doesn't feel like I'm sitting here playing CDH all the time, right?
But I have a question for you, Richard. Where are you playing these games? Are these games just strictly with us, or are you playing with other playgroups as well?
Yeah, so I play randomly. So I play randomly in the CDH channels, right? And people bring decks that are definitely not CDH, right? Like they barely qualify for our level. And I also play randomly on Moto, but that might skew things because people there might be spikier, right? And then we also take a look at all of your submitted lists, right? We see the lists that people submit to us, but again, they could be tailored to us because they know how we like to play, right? So,
yeah. But,
some people just give like, here's my random Breya deck or something, right? But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like it's too fast. It's different from like Standard, where I think Standard is like, okay, these new card pool is like somehow ruining Standard. Like the game has kind of changed. Whereas now I'm like, yes, there's some weird stuff like Dockside, but in general, it allows you to play a game and not sit there on 8 mana doing nothing like every turn, like because you have no cards and your cards are ineffective, right? And it's like it doesn't feel like you cannot like. I think you can do very well playing a deck full of like 6-drops. You need to ramp into it, definitely, right? But you're not going to be like so outclassed at the table that people are like, what the heck? Right? Like, yes, if someone, Mana Crypts, Dockside, Soul Ring, then you're at the wrong table, right? But I don't know. I don't feel it's too fast.
I'm in a kind of, I agree with Seth, but I also kind of agree with Richard and Krim here, where I don't think it's too fast in curated play groups. Because I play with a lot of different play groups. My primary play group is Commander Clash / The Stream, and now the Quickies, and those are curated play groups. These are play groups that we all come in with already an understanding of what we want to be doing. Commander Clash, we've played together so many times that we kind of understand these are the game experiences that we're looking for, and that's what it really boils down for in Commander. Is you want to ideally have a table, sit down with all the same play expectations, and that expectation being met, right? Like if you're playing CDH, you're playing high power, you're playing mid power, you're playing low power, you ideally want to sit down at a table where the expectations for CDH or the expectations or whatever power level is kind of met. And for Commander Clash, it's super easy because we jammed a billion games. For the stream and for the quickies, it's also super easy because these are all people who, watch Commander Clash, watch the streams and everything. So they already know what decks to bring. I think the only time I've ever had a game where it was kind of like weird is somebody brought like a Korvold food deck and expecting, food tribal to be a balancing act, and Korvold just like destroyed all of us because it's Korvold. But I have also played at LGSs. I have also played with random people on MTGO. And I'm going to tell you that those experiences aren't great for me. Like, somebody will be like, casual, put like say this is a casual table, and somebody's going to be showing up with like tutoring a Gaea's Cradle and making 15 mana on turn 2. And it's like, well, did you have the board wipe or not? Like, on turn 3 or whatever. Like, it's not great. Like the variance there, the odds of you getting a good game experience that you try to, your expectation being met is a struggle. I think when it's pickup games, when it's a regular play group, it's great. But when it's pickup games, I feel like pickup games are suffering a lot right now. From my own experiences, at least, where like you go into a game and you're hoping to get X experience, and the variance of these high power cards, the Jeska's Will, the Dockside Extortionist, the Mana Crypts, all of that, the Fierce Guardianship and Deflecting Swat for free, protection on your Sithis or whatever, like high must kill threat. It's so high that like if they have it, you're just not going to have a good game and you have to shuffle up again. And if they don't have it, then the game can continue, I guess. But like, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that.
Did you have the power level talk? Did everyone be like, it's a 7, and then they cradled you on turn 1?
But power level talk doesn't mean, like, the rule 0 is incredibly ineffective in pickup groups. It's so bad in pickup groups. And rule 0 is also just not very needed in regular tables because you already figured it out. Like you play a couple games, that's your rule 0. You figure out, maybe this deck was a little bit too strong. I'll bring my other deck now this time. Maybe looping Cyclonic Rift was obnoxious, so I'll take out Cyclonic Rift or something. But that is rule 0.
I have so many issues with rule 0, and I think what it does
it's such a crutch.
I don't like. I think rule 0. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I have a problem with it. But yeah, like so. I think the one thing about pickup games right now is like you just gotta. We talk about expectations, right? As long as you're not entering a random pod with a CDH deck and you should know, right? After a certain amount of games, like if it's your first game and you randomly show up with like, I don't know, a Nekusar Wheels deck, then sure, okay, whatever. You've somehow managed to dodge all the info that's not a great deck to enter with, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But then like if you're not entering with like that or a precon, like then I think. As long as your my expectations when I go into the game are simple. Like I don't care what you play. Usually most pods that I play that are pickup are going to just be for funsies, right? So I don't think too much of it. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me and like what my expectations are, right? And when this is a little bit of more of like philosophies and ideologies within the game itself that you yourself bring to the game. But like for me, I don't. As long as I don't enter with a precon deck and I don't enter with a CDH deck, I'm okay with everything in between. So and as long as I go in with that mentality, I'm never upset about anything. I've never had my expectations not be met. And like another thing here is if I'm entering with say Volo, Korvold, even if it's a casual level Korvold, right? Just don't be upset when people kill you. Right? Like I think the biggest thing that makes a table awkward at pickup games and all of this stuff is not the power level of things, because the power level I think is all fine, like within a table, like whatever is in between pre-con and CDH, I think everything's fine there. But if I'm playing Korvold and then I'm like super salty that somebody has anti-food tech or anti-Korvold tech or that go kill me first, that then ruins the pod. So like I don't know, rule 0, there's lots of things that make Commander a little bit weird, and I don't think it's the power level of like cards being printed directly into Commander. I think all of this is a net positive for the game so far. So I don't know. I think random pickups, I don't think they should be suffering that much unless it's something that's been bred by rule 0s and things like that. So
is this a money thing? Like the good cards are expensive, right? And everyone is playing expensive cards nowadays. Like, is that what the issue is? Like, why was this not an issue in 2017 when you could have Mana Crypt, Mana Vaulted, Soul Ring, Dark Ritual, whatever? You know what I mean? Like, you could have did all this crap back then, right? So, like, why is it a discussion point today but not in 2017?
I'm really glad you brought that up that way, because that's something I've been waiting to say. Like, one of my least favorite play patterns in Commander, and why I think Soul Ring should be banned, is like those Soul Ring starts, a Soul Ring into multiple mana rocks, where someone just runs away with the game. I feel like the difference is many of the new cards, the chase new cards at Wizards prints, have that same play pattern, where it's just like you could be playing a precon and drop literally the precon 99, the whole deck, and drop a Dockside Extortionist and probably just go off and win the game, because that single card just like puts you so far ahead. And Jeska's Will's like that, Jeweled Lotus is kind of like that. So I feel like we've gotten a ton of cards that are way more cards that create that same experience you were talking about. The 2017, like Soul Ring into another mana rock, I run away with the game, let's shuffle up, start again. Now we have like 20 new cards that also do something very, very similar that are in a lot of people's decks.
I mean, outside of Dockside, are there any other like main offenders? Like what are the worst? Like, I think
like
Jeweled Lotus.
Jeweled
Lotus
Lotus
does that.
Jeska's
Smothering
Will.
Tithe can do that. Jeska's Will can do that.
Just because, like, these are, like, very efficient cards at getting you more resources in bursts, right? Or Smothering Tithe over time. It gets you resources. But I guess I don't think those cards are... Like, I think Dockside is genuinely absurd and busted. Like, that is a big mistake. That card has been a mistake, and that's the only one that's a glaring mistake to me. I think everything else has been pretty good. Like, I mean, it's powerful. They've definitely printed more powerful cards. That's for sure. But, like...
Jeweled Lotus?
Is Jeweled Lotus bad?
I can play my 4-drop commander on turn 1.
I mean, I just think it creates that same play pattern as like a turn 1 Soul Ring, where it speeds up the game. Like, someone's going to get super far ahead when they play those cards, and now we have many more cards that push one person really far ahead on one really big turn. And do
Maybe
it pretty early in the
Jeweled
game.
Lotus the same. Like, Jeweled Lotus is not the same as Soul Ring to me. I think Soul Ring is infinitely better. Because Jeweled Lotus
Like,
is a
if you were
burst
in
at
black,
once.
you could Dark Ritual. Like, you can do similar things back in the day, but it's interesting. Like, is the game actually faster though? Right? Or did it just create like arch enemy or something, and we don't like this play pattern? Like, do you like?
Well,
like, to me, faster means like I gotta play like 2 CMC or below, hold up removal. You know, like when you play CDH, it's a different thing, right? You can't just tap out and play like your stupid 6-drop, right? You gotta be like, I gotta hold interaction up. Like, any turn, someone can win, so I need to be able to get ready to interact, right? And to me, that creates a different play pattern. Whereas, you know, when we play non-CDH, still just you like tap out turn 4. Maybe someone wins, but I don't know, you still tap out, right? You still play your stuff, right? Like, you don't play differently, like, you know, CDH scare, like, oh, it's turn 2, you know, you got to play a 1-drop, hold up the swords, and have a Force of Will back up, and, you know, I'm ready to go, right? Like, that's not how...
I don't feel like I'm playing Modern, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's
I don't
the main
feel
thing.
like
So, like,
that, right?
So, it's not
think
at a
it's more
level where it's unbearable yet.
I think it's more subtle, but I think it's there. Like, I think the most concrete examples I can think of is like a few years ago, I'd play a lot of Gilded Lotuses because I'm gonna like play my 5-mana Gilded Lotus and then cast my big 8-mana thing. Now you don't, or Explosive Vegetation would be another example. Like, now that's replaced by Arcane Signet. Now that's replaced by, you know, other 2-mana ramp spells, and like, the end result is things are happening faster, and because things are happening faster, the games are gonna end faster. So I feel like those are like, I don't know. I think it's like pretty obvious examples of like how the games, just the play patterns are going to be sped up compared to where they were a few years ago, because the cards that we have access to and the cards that we play are different.
Gilded Lotus is already on its way out a long time ago, regardless.
I mean, that was like
right?
2017. That was like a staple. That was like one of the most played mana rocks, and now it's like not really played at all. Maybe it shouldn't have been in 2017.
Yeah, I don't know if it
learned,
should have been in
but
2017.
it was.
it was definitely
like,
playable.
It
Yeah.
was a card a lot of decks played back then, just by the like data on it.
Yeah.
But
I want to be
fast. I would play that today. Comment in
Richard,
June.
come on, Richard. You're playing Cartographer's Hawk. All right, leave
I
me alone.
can't sink. Come on, Richard. Really? I can't sink 5 mana into like a format where everything blows up an artifact and then some, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But what I'm
Right.
saying is, like, you can
And that is
spend
power
5 mana and play something that doesn't impact the board. Like, I don't like when people say like, for 4 mana you need to impact the board, right? Like,
Well,
I don't
yeah,
think you
sure.
need to. You need to do something. You need to build your resources, draw cards, but like, you don't need to put a questing beast on the battlefield and hit someone, right? Like, that's not, we're not playing that kind of game, right? Like, it's not, so fast. It's like if you play CDH, you can't spend 6 mana and tap out and do nothing. I don't feel normal.
Well, if I
EDH is
spend
at that
3
level.
plus mana in CDH, I win the game, right? Like,
Well,
it's ad nauseum or not.
I wanted to point out, though, when we were talking about is it getting faster, like we just started the podcast saying objectively, like, yes, it is getting faster for us. So it gets faster for us for what, 3 turns on average.
Right.
So if we're defining what's fast. We're talking about when is the game. Are our games ending faster? And the answer is, by that definition, yes, the games are getting faster. And I think there's two, and also Richard, you brought up a good observation at the beginning. You're like, at the beginning we had less ways of closing out the games.
Yep.
Now we close out the games far more efficiently, and I think that's the other part of the mana. Like we were talking about, how quickly people are getting their stuff out with Dockside and Mana Crypt and stuff. The problem is twofold, I think, or if you consider it as a problem. The reason why it's getting faster is twofold. First, people's mana acceleration is getting objectively much faster because we have more options to do so, and they're getting very popular. And second, what people are ramping into is also more efficient at closing out games. So our fast mana is getting higher, and our finishers that we're ramping into are getting more efficient. Like if you jeweled Lotus into what was it, your horsemanship commander?
Yeah.
Like
I don't
You're
know
like,
what
that's
the
not.
name is.
Yeah, okay. You jewel Lotus into your commander, and like that's really good if it sticks. It did it, but like that's not what people are generally going to be using jewel Lotus for. They're going to be like doing a jewel Lotus into an Adeline on turn 1, and then smacking people for like commander lethal on turn 3. Like the finishers that people are actually running are much higher too, alongside their better, more efficient ramp. And so the problem that I see in terms of pickup games is people will just randomly have these really crazy starts where they're going to ramp out their crazy threats, and then those threats are so much better than they were before, so they're going to close out the game so much faster. And that's how I see the average game going shorter, is like somebody will just have the nuts more and more often because, fast mana is a bigger thing. They'll drop a threat that is actually going to win the game as opposed to a decade ago. And then you're just like, all right, we lose on turn 5, GG. Nobody had to stop, or somebody had to stop, but there was a fierce guardianship, so GG. And then you shuffle up again. And I don't think those play experiences are, for me at least, not interesting, and I don't like those. And I think those happen in pickup games more and more often now. Like it just happens more.
I think that's the problem with modern Magic, right? The snowballing aspect. But I would say that, like, I don't know if the games end faster. Like, to me, it's like you compare, like, say, Nephalia Drown Yard control versus Grave Titan control, right? Like, effectively, by turn 6, the control player has won if they're still alive, except one person needed a Drown Yard, and it takes another 20 minutes to kill you. And then the other person attacked you twice with the Grave Titan and finished the game, right? Like, so yes, like, the game is technically faster, but it doesn't feel to the point where you're like, oh, I can't play any creatures or mid-range threats or anything. Like, everything needs to be a combo, and I gotta be able to one-shot everyone. Like,
See,
I don't, do you actually feel that's the case? Like, how is a typical game actually playing out? Because, like, yeah, you get the Adeline down, and then now 3 players are trying to swords it. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so, like, you're actually
But now
going
Adeline
backwards,
has false
right?
maneuver, and it has like, well, if you have swords, then you can still exile it. But like, you still have more efficient backup to protect the Adeline and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if Adeline's like, playing like
everyone
an
else
Adeline
has
deck,
equally-
it's staxing you.
Well, everyone else has their fierce
powerful
guardianship. Everyone else has their
answers and-
own
yeah.
soul ring. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
But-
accelerated, but then you guys just fight and, like,
I
But-
end
think-
up
I
deadlocked
think
again, right?
The main thing to take, I like to think about is, so yes, we know that everything has gotten faster, but is that necessarily like a bad thing? Like, are we not enjoying that? Right? Because I don't think it's been a bad thing at all. Like, all these things that you've mentioned, am I still enjoying Commander even though it's a few turns faster? Right? And I think, like, I'm enjoying it more. The games are shortened, but the games are a lot more intense. There's a lot more fun things happening, a lot more eventful things. Eventful things are happening within a game as opposed to like just we're kind of stuck staring at each other drawing lands, right? Like now, like commanders are efficient, cards are actually closing games. That's cool, right? And even Dirtle decks have good ways to now close the game, or at least get the table to concede, right? So like this is, I think overall the experience of Commander speeding up has been a positive. So I've enjoyed this a lot more. Right? Like, isn't that because like I think that's the better thing to like look at here, right? Because
yeah, if it's more enjoyable, that's the bottom line. Like if it's fast or slow, that doesn't really matter as long as you're enjoying it. And if you're enjoying it more, then that's good. Like then that means speeding it up is good.
So I've become enjoying it more engaged.
What's the consensus?
Yeah, like are we enjoying it more
I don't know
as a
everyone's
game?
stances on that.
What's everybody saying this?
So I think I think the question is why your game's ending sooner for me. Like if it's like, hey, we each played a really fun game that everyone enjoyed, but the game ended 2 or 3 turns sooner, that's great. Like that's actually probably way better because I would much rather have my Commander games be, an hour rather than 3 hours. So like that's a good thing. But if the games on average are ending sooner because one person had the Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, play my Commander, win on turn 4. If that's what's bringing the average down, those games I really dislike. Those are my least favorite parts of Commander. So if that's what's bringing the average down, then I think that's actually, I'm having those experiences more often, and that would be making the format less fun for me compared to where it was.
But I think
that is what words out of my mouth. Like it's the amount of non-games where one person gets to go off and nobody else gets to do their thing is drastically higher in my experiences in pickup games. Not in Commander Clash, obviously, not in curated tables, but at pickup games, like that is what's happening. And like my ideal Commander game is like everybody gets to do their thing and then the game ends. And if the game ends on turn 8 rather than turn 11, but everybody got a chance to do something, that's great. But if it's like the game ended on turn 5, everybody tried their best to stop the person who popped off super hard because they had the net draw, and then you shuffle up and then you go again and somebody else has a net draw and they pop off and you just like try to stop that thing and hopefully you do, or else you have to shuffle up again. Like I don't those games are very unappealing to me, and they happen more frequently because of the powering up of the format.
I mean, the things that are making the game like speed up were always here. And like the things that only are plentiful now are just things that they speed into, right?
Well,
I
no,
feel
because like Tuvasa, like they print an Enchantress Tuvasa and it draws 1 card per turn and it's 3 mana, and then they print Sithis, which is just 2 mana and has no cap on the Enchantress, so it's even harder to remove because you kill it once, you just cast it for 4. Like that's the problem. Like they keep making more and more efficient creatures that are harder to end. The finishers get better, and like that's my issue. Is like Wizards of the Coast is printing stuff that is just more and more powerful. Like yeah, we had powerful stuff before, but like, because
I think the things that have made non-games, and like obviously my experience are very much so anecdotal and not backed by numbers, because it's like whatever my typical like encounters are, right? So my typical encounters have been the only time anything goes wrong is when someone's loaded up with fast mana. So. And, like, it's never been the threats they've printed. It's never, like, outside of Dockside. Dockside has been the only thing that's been miserable for me. So, I don't know. I feel like it's just the things that have made the games non-games have always been here. So, I don't think anything's really changed in that.
I think it's like power discrepancy. So, power discrepancy is the most unfun thing that can happen. And they've printed so many powerful cards that maybe people can't gauge their power anymore. And power discrepancy is very easy to stumble upon, right? Because like like if someone's popping off with mana rocks and like you have nothing to interact with, you're dead, right? Yeah, that's how it is, right? But you don't show up to a play group with like 20 turn 1 mana rocks and say you're a 5, right? Like you shouldn't do that either, right? So maybe it's like something to do with power discrepancy, but like I just can't imagine this typical group. Like if you're playing with this kind of speed, and even if you're just playing like the staples, right? Like if you're playing Dockside, you're playing Smothering Tithe, your deck is like $1,000 plus, right? Like your deck is like super expensive. Like I can't imagine this is a typical, experience. Like everyone's just like whipping out $1,000 decks and like, yeah, I Dockside you and then I Gaia's Cradle you to death. Like, is that really what's happening?
I mean,
Is that why
I think
people are
it's
It's
upset?
very casual.
I think it's worth mentioning that like a lot of those cards were recently in pre-cons. Like a lot of these cards we're talking about, the free commander cards, Dockside Extortionist, Smothering Tithe, like you could, which are geared for like new casual players. So even though they're really expensive now, I think a lot of people have those cards because they bought a Brawl deck or they bought the pre-con that's been marketed to them as a new player. So I think even though they cost a lot now, a lot of people have access to those cards because of how they were printed.
It's also, you have to look at like our best estimate on what people are bringing at local play groups is EDH Rec. It's obviously not the best overall. These are people who are at least are online and they're posting their deck lists online, and not all Commander players are going to be doing that. But like, I think people who go to LGS are probably, you know, internety enough to be using EDH Rec as well. The top commanders: Atraxa, Kenrith, Korvold, Yuriko, Edgar Markov. These are the most popular ones from the past 2 years. Like, if somebody just plays a Yuriko deck that is like Ninja Tribal, especially with Kamigawa coming out and all these new ninja stuff, they're gonna wreck the faces of somebody who's not at the same, like, you say I'm a mid-power Yuriko deck, I'm a casual deck, you know, it's Ninja Tribal, you know, I'm not doing like Vamp Tutor, some 9-drop or something on top of my library or anything, but you're still just gonna wreck face. Korvold, I'm a food deck, or I'm just a Jun Good stuff, but like you're gonna wreck face, and these are the most popular commanders.
But let's say
right
they're
now.
all together. So the like whatever your power level is, like you choose 22 same power level decks, and they all play together.
Yep.
Do we like that gameplay, or are we still like, nah, you know, it's still snowbally, and whoever draws a Soul Ring wins, or it's like, no,
I
you know,
don't like that gameplay.
When you power it up, it's like fine, right? And you know, the gameplay experience is still good.
I would lean towards no, because then you're still, I think you're gonna have what Tomer and I were talking about earlier, where you like everyone is like playing equally powerful commanders, but the play pattern is going to be one person has like the nut draw and runs away with the game and everyone tries to stop them, and then the next person like they're all just so powered up and have the potential to just win the game almost immediately that odds are someone's going to do that. And sure, sometimes no one will have the nut draw and you'll have a really good game, but then a lot of times you're going to have someone that just has like that start because Korvold and Yuriko and Edgar are all just like such push commanders.
It sounds like CDH, honestly. Like there are people who legitimately love that. They want to have the most powerful cards and they want to pop off the most, and they're okay with like, you know, every single person at the table. Basically, one person's allowed to pop off. If somebody has a nut draw, somebody goes crazy. That person's not stopped, and then you shuffle up and you go again. And like that, I mean, I've watched a lot of CDH. Like one of my favorite stuff to have in the background is CDH. So like I watch a lot of Play to Win. I watch a lot of Playing with Power. And yeah, they have like turn 3, maybe even turn 6 games. But it's like the odds of the person who goes first and puts a Gemstone Cavern on turn 0 as a pre-game action and has the Crypt and everything and drops like a turn 1 Rhystic Study and you know, goes nutso, is the one who's going to be having all the fun. You know,
that's expectation though. Like this is a big expectation thing. I played a lot of CDH, and it's the same as standard, right? Not everyone takes the tier 1 deck and grinds with it, right? Like the only difference is when you play standard, you know the other person has a good deck, right? And if you play some garbage card and you lose because they played a tier 1 Epiphany deck, you're not going to be salty. You might be a little salty, but you're not really that salty because you're having fun playing your weird cards. Same with CDH, right? You walk in and you play some garbage Rogak deck or whatever, you know what everyone's bringing. And when someone Thoracles you're like, it's expected, right? So when someone does it, it's expected and you're not salty, you move on. When you play casual, you're expecting everyone to have a good time, right? And you walk in and someone Gaia cradles you on turn 1. You're like WTF and you flip the table and walk away, right? So I think it's something to do with like that expectation or like how easy it is to accidentally break that expectation, right? Like you play a Dockside, you're like, oh, it's a pre-con card. It's fair and balanced, right? Everyone else is like, have you never cast this card? Like, do you think 2 mana make 30 mana seems fairly reasonable, right? And then the feel bads, right? So this somehow comes back to power level discussion, right? I think as opposed to too fast, too slow.
It's an expectations. Legit, that's it. It's not even like that's what I mean, right? As long as you know you're not playing CDH, you're not playing a pre-con, I think anything in between, as long as you expect that, I would never be upset. If I just showed up and played my janky card, I
think the expectation is you get to play your janky card, and if you can't play your janky card, then you get upset.
But I'm playing a janky deck, right, or a janky card, and I should fully be ready to know that like I may not get to do that, or as soon as I do it, someone may just instant swat it down, or it just doesn't matter, or it's a non-factor, and I think that's okay.
I don't know. Like, I think you want to actually be able to do like what your deck's trying to do. Like, I think that's what makes the format fun for most people. Like, I don't know. If you just like
are you sure?
get snowballed by a Corvold or snowballed by a Yuriko and don't actually do anything meaningful, like it doesn't really matter if your deck's high powered or low powered. The problem is that someone has this busted cards wizard printed that like just dominates the entire game. Like I think that's the problem, regardless of what your expectation is. The problem is Corvold or Yuriko or Dockside Extortionist or whatever.
All right, here's a question. You're stuck in a stranded island with another 1,000 EDH players, and you had to choose 1 year of Magic. And you play that year like pass. So do you want to play 2021 Commander card pool, or do you want to play 2018 Commander card pool? Random pickup games.
Only 2018. What about like 2015?
Okay, 2015. Okay, 2015 that didn't even exist, did it? 2015, 2018, 2022. Like which era?
Wait, Commander started in 2011, Richard. By the way.
Oh, okay, my bad.
2020.
Which era of card pool would you like to play with? Random pickup games.
I wanna play the print the Commander precons once a year era. Like what's that? 2013 through 2016, 17,
okay,
somewhere
so
in there. Like so Wizards
prior, then.
is doing something with the format, but they're not doing something every month with the format.
2022 because you get the best hate cards.
I think
what year's Opposition Agent?
Like,
yeah,
Opposition Agent didn't exist.
Dronith Magistrate. What? Like you get all the good hate cards to then stop all the people who are trying to pop off. See,
right,
I never
Tomer,
pop off. I just make sure you don't pop off.
It would be like 2015, like Seth. Like I think my major gripe again. I have no shade to CEDH. It's not for me, and I do watch it a lot. I consume a lot of CEDH content, obviously. But like I preferred the time in pickup games where I had more leeway on not bringing staples to decks, and I would be matched up with decks that I had more chances to interact with and have a game where everybody gets to pop off. Whereas nowadays, I genuinely feel like if I'm in a pickup game, it's usually there's going to be games where everybody gets a chance to do their thing, and that's what I enjoy. That's experience I look out for. But a lot of those games, a higher percentage that I would like is games where one person gets to pop off and everybody else just shuffles up afterwards, and then you just rinse and repeat.
I think you can still enter without staples. Richard enters without staples every week and beats us.
No.
Yeah,
I choose 2022 because the staples allow me to play Fledgling Osprey. Right? Like, I'm allowed to play white.
You're arguing
in
the other
2022.
direction.
No.
These powerful cards allow you to play your Dirtles.
Like the Toski allows me to play the Fledgling Osprey, right? Without the Toski,
weakest argument.
I cannot play it, right? I can't play white.
Absolutely weakest card.
I kind of like
Go play white in
entertaining
2015, right? Go play white in 2015.
I will.
It's like horrendous.
I mean,
right?
give me a time machine.
Also, Seth, how can you say that MDFCs are current year?
That leads to power creep.
There are things that there's things that I like, but I just think that was my favorite era of Commander. Like that was before, yeah.
But think about current pool of Magic and the power level and power creep. We at all points of the game now have some form of something to do between MDFCs, all this stuff. That's what I've always wanted for Magic, right? Like that's what I loved about it. And in theory, I liked Companion because of that in 60 card formats. Of course, Companions were definitely a mistake on the game. But the thing here is I love now that in 2022 Magic, there is something for us to do at all points. At any point, we can have a comeback card, just a card to come back. I love that. I also love the hate cards that come with it. I love so much of current Magic outside of like Veil of Summer and like whatnot. Like I even love Oko. I think Oko's like great.
I mean,
I love it in playgroups that already have their expectation sets. I love it in Commander Clash. I much prefer this card pool Commander Clash than when we started in 2016, and I much prefer streams and quickies and all that stuff this card pool rather than 2016. But when it comes to pickup games, the 100% going back. Take me back.
Why? But why, right? Because like now, let's say you go into a pickup game, somebody kind of runs away with something right at the beginning. You now have something equally powerful in spread across through multiple colors. Like
if
much
I
like
got
Richard,
lucky to have it in my opener, sure.
they also had to get lucky, right? Now, if they're obviously consistent with like 25, like, you know, Chrome Mox, every Mox, Grim Monolith, I don't think they're a casual deck. I think they know what they're doing. So like much like Richard just mentioned, right? Like play white in 2015 or play white now. There's so many good things in white now that didn't have then, and that's courtesy of all the sweet new, faster, more power creep things. So power creep isn't bad unless it goes too far. So right now, I don't think it's gone too far. I think the natural pickup game, there's a lot of stuff that can get you back in the game, that can answer things on the board, that can also make it so that randomly the person that seemed super far ahead is now just a non-factor because your card's just better.
I feel like this same issue that I have with modern or like current Commander is it's throughout all the formats of Magic, like, which also for me like confirms that it's mostly a card design thing, because it's that same like snowball-y, one person has the nut draw, you know, it's really a non-game, like nothing you do is actually meaningful, and then you do it again. Like, I feel like we see that same thing being a big criticism of Standard over the last couple of years, or Modern at various points over the past couple of years. So I like the same thing in Modern. Like, I would rather play against the, like, I'm going to try to ground yard you out, or I'm going to Sphinx's Revelation, and that's my finisher, than the, like, oh, I stick it to Fairy and tuck it. Like, so for me, that's, I don't know. I think that
snowball cards are fine in Commander. I think in 60 card formats, snowball cards like Ragavan are more problematic there, because the differences between a 60 card format and a 100 card is that in 60 card, any one card will win you the game, right? And that's kind of absurd. I'd like in 1v1, I kind of want us to do this clash back and forth. But in a multiplayer game, you're up against 3 others. So I'm okay with there being snowbally cards there, because it's not just me that has to deal with it. And then also I can now play a snowbally card, and the table does the whole thing, and we do this dance. So I think snowball cards aren't actually that bad in Commander. I think they work best there.
I also think it's definitely budget. It aggravates the issue a lot. Like, if we're talking like running these cards, everybody has access to these cards, everybody has a chance to shut everybody down. Well, if you want to run Fierce Guardianship and your table isn't proxy friendly, and again, I'm very proxy friendly, just throwing it out there, but like Fierce Guardianship is $50 if you want to buy an official copy of it. Just Cause Will, $19. Jeweled Lotus, $92. Dockside, $70. So like, if you're not running proxies and you want to keep up with the average table these days, it seems like you need to spend a lot of money. And that also bothers me a lot, because it means that people who are on budgets and you know, has a play group that is a jerk and doesn't allow proxies, if this is what the average play group is bringing now to the table, and this could be your experiences can vary. This is my anecdotal experiences, like playing on MTGO or random pickup games before times when we had LGS, that people are running these cards in a random table, and you're at a disadvantage if you don't have them. And then not only like is the money thing, but it's also the fact that like you now in your 99 card deck, you have to make room for these cards. If you want to play at tables where people are running these cards, right? Like there's no equivalent to Dockside. There's no equivalent to Jewel Lotus. Like Fierce Guardianship,
gotta wait
like
for
what
power
you're gonna run
creep to hit
thwart.
harder, so they power creep the uncommons, Tomer. You know how now we get like uncommons that used to be rares? Eventually,
and they'll only be $10.
With
they'll
enough
only be
power creep,
$10.
we can get the uncommon card draw.
Yeah.
So that's,
only $15 answers to the
that snowball
format.
point is kind of interesting, right? Like if you're a modern player, so a modern player in 2022, you're used to this snowball like crazy thing, right? And you play like very aggressive cards, you snowball. But now you can't play Modern anywhere. Wizards is like kind of throwing it aside. Commander's a thing. You all play Commander now. Like, do you attribute the fact that there's this huge influx of spiky players that just because they can't play tournament Magic anywhere, right? Now they're playing Commander, and they bring with them their spike aspects, and they're fine getting snowballed to death, and that's why they don't see it as an issue.
Maybe that's me. Maybe that's just me. Like I'm okay with all of this, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but, like,
good
do you
for
think that's
them.
a general thing, or like no, like this is not related to it at all? Because the
think
death
good for
of
them.
Standard does coincide with the rise of Commander, right?
I mean,
I think it's good for them. Like you can, if you find a play group that is high powered, then that's amazing because everybody wants to play a high powered game, right?
I mean, I think if you're someone who has never really played Commander before and is coming to the Commander format from Modern or Legacy, you're gonna play it differently. I know I did, like, because that's exactly how I came to Commander, was from playing Modern and playing Standard, and then we're like, hey, let's do this Commander Clash thing, and I played a ton of tutors in my deck. And if you look at my early decks, like, I was building them in a way that I would build a Modern deck or whatever. So I think there is like some amount of influence there, but I think any idea that like it's all these people joining Commander that's like a negative to the format or whatever, like I think that's definitely like not true. But I do think that you're going to have a different perspective if you're joining Commander for the first time from being like a Legacy or Modern player than if you're someone who goes from like a kitchen table casual play to Commander. Like if that was your progression, you're going to view the format a lot differently than if you're coming from the tournament scene to Commander, I think.
I'm gonna go here. Do you think CDH affects this in any way? Like, so if you take, say, Magic, competitive Magic, right? Whoever wins the Pro Tour, you can guarantee in the next 5 minutes, everyone on Ladder and Moto and Arena are playing that deck, and that deck just overwhelms the metagame, right? So if people see CDH decks and they're like, look what these people run. And like, I'll just put some components into my casual deck, but I'm still casual, don't worry. Like, do you think that has anything to do with it? Or no, that's just a scapegoat again?
I'm going to say no for this reason. And I think the reason is like the Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation combo is like one of the biggest things in CDH from what I know. I'm not a huge expert, but that's not something that, if you look at the data, is heavily played in casual decks. Like on EDH Rec or whatever, that's just not something people are playing. And both of the pieces are pretty inexpensive. You could slot it into literally any deck that has blue and black mana in it, and it's going to make your deck better, and people are choosing not to. So I think that's more of like a scapegoat than a reality, because I think if it was happening, we'd see like tons of people playing, the Thoracle combo in their casual decks.
I think it's also, I think like people always like, I look at Twitter every once in a while, and that's a mistake, number one. But when I do,
sorry,
it's
Twitter
usually
fans.
like, I'm sorry.
Doom scrolling, huh, Tomer?
My feed is just awful, all right? Bad mental health choice.
You mean the one you curated personally?
No, so I have a lot of, I'm trying to follow as many Handmade Dice and Keyboard Enthusiast accounts, and those are fantastic. But you know what Twitter likes to throw at me? They like to throw MTG drama. And that's a different beast.
True.
That's a different thing. So that, like, I have like literally like 100 and something mech keyboard enthusiasts in Handmade Dice things, and they're not showing me those posts. They're showing me, which content creator did an oopsie this time, or like why everything sucks and all that stuff. And it's like, oof, great. That's what I want to do on my break.
Why Commander's
anyway,
too fast?
but the question is, the answer was that like people were like complaining a lot about all the issues about Commander are actually the content creators. Yeah, I think they're putting way too much stock into any content creator, honestly, for Commander. Like, again, CDH, they are very like proxy friendly. They do not want to do pub stomp. They make like a very distinct category where like they're not going to bring high powered decks, so like a random casual pickup games, like that's a huge no. They play Thoracle and whatnot to an extent, and that doesn't bleed over. Like, sure, I think over time, a format gets solved. That's a natural progression. And more people are going to slowly power up their decks, and they're going to find CDH more enticing. But I'm going to be like 100% honest. I don't think Commander's ever going to be a situation where CDH is a very significant part of the community. They're always going to be a part of the community, and I love watching them and whatnot. But the desire for Commander like being sold and everything and being played is a casual majority, and I don't see that ever changing because there's just more casuals.
But there's a disconnect there, right? Like we're saying casuals are powering up too fast, right? They're like Jewel Lotus into finisher, but then they're like they draw the line there. They don't want to cross into CEDH, right? Like shouldn't it naturally just go into CEDH then?
No, because the Thoracle, you look at the Thoracle, and it's not that impressive if you read it by itself. And there's like the Tainted Pact or whatever is what makes it bonkers. But neither of those are super enticing. You know what's super enticing is when you open up your Commander Legends booster box and you see a Jeweled Lotus, and you're like, holy, I know the word jeweled and lotus, and I know this is good, and it's fancy, and look at that art. It's pretty. I'm going to shove it into my deck. Why wouldn't I? Jessica's Well. You cast it one time and you're like, holy moly, this is very obviously good. Or you cast a Dockside that's in your precon and you're like, oh my god, I made 50 artifacts for existing for 2 mana. Like, these are cards that like are flashy and easily understood, whereas Thoracle, you know, like one obscure card from Ice Age plus this card with like a 10 paragraphs of text that says you win the game at the very bottom. Like, there's a difference, right? Yeah, I think that's a Wizard of the Coast thing. Wizard of the Coast wants to sell products. I don't think like Theros Beyond Death was selling all the booster boxes because people want to get their hands on Thassa's Oracle. That's my spiel.
All right, what's the answer?
What's the answer?
You somehow are promoted to head of Commander Committee or something at Wizards of the Coast. What is your operative? How do we fix this? Or how do we make it more fun? Or how do we, I don't know, whatever.
You reduce consistency. You reduce the consistency in all the decks.
How do you do that, though?
200 card format.
Easy.
We did it. Everyone plays Battle
250 cards, and now honestly,
wait, how many cards do you need for Battle Wits? Whatever that
200.
one is.
So you give like plus 50 on top of it, you should be fine. No, okay. So like what I think here is you can reduce consistency by making more things that hate tutors, and then also on top of that, like legit, if you can, like the hate cards have made it so these decks can't pop off as easy, right? They have to jump through more hoops. I love that. Dronic
Magistrate. That does nothing to stop the turn 1 mana crypts though. Like that does nothing to do. Turn
you
one,
make more null rods. You make one-sided null rods on Karn, like how Karn exists.
Pre-game action null rod.
You can attach more things, right? Because like things are getting more powerful, so why not? Like you have Collector Oof.
Like the Eminence, our opponents can't search their libraries.
Perfect.
But the thing is, like, most players would hate that. Like, that works for CDH level play, but for the, if the goal is you have 4 players that each do their thing, being like, hey, player, none of your artifacts work, or hey, player, you can't rampant growth, like, that's not achieving that goal for, the typical casual player. So I think it would work for you, Krem, but I don't know if that would work for the metagame.
It's puzzle solving, right?
It would work for me, too, but I think for, the average Commander player, I don't know if they would get behind that. What I was going to say is I feel like Wizards is already doing this because a lot of the things we've been talking about, they have kind of admitted as mistakes. If you watch Gavin's YouTube, Eureka's and Corvalds and Jewel Lotus even has come up in some of the conversations. So some of these things that we've been Dockside, are things that Wizards themselves are saying okay, we went too far with this. The challenge is what wins out in the end? Wizards' desire to sell packs or their desire to make Commander a healthy format? So I think the good news is Wizard knows. And I think the answer is you stop printing those types of cards. Not that you stop printing new cards for Commander, but you stop printing the Dockside Extortionists and the Corvalds and the Eureka's because those cards just promote a play style of Commander that most people don't enjoy.
What? Why are we not I'm being serious here. Why do we genuinely not just make more things that, let's say, punish additional mana production things, more damping spheres, just make more things like that attached to bodies.
Experience.
Because people don't like it.
But why?
You basically said you do not have fun when you don't get to do your thing. right?
Right.
And in one context, we talked about someone won the game too fast, right? They snowballed out of control. But another way you cannot do your thing is someone slaps down a hate piece and then you can't do your thing either.
Turn
right?
off your entire deck.
Well,
yeah.
GG
It causes
wolves,
the
right?
same. Like it made the
you're-
person who slapped on the hate piece play the game, right? It slapped the other person, but
But
the thing
how?
that
If you're popping off and you're able to win super quick, are you really surprised that someone would build a hate
Yeah.
deck or like
Yes.
Or why would you be surprised? Why would you be upset
because
about that?
we're not. You're trying to rationalize human behavior. Right? People not liking like MLD and resource denial and stuff that stops them from playing Magic is not a new thing. People have been complaining about it since like 1995. Like. This is just how people think. It's not. Is it rational? You could say like, look, this is healthy for the format. The speed is going too fast. This is one way of achieving it. But people are not going to enjoy it. Like that's just how it is.
I think
you
Tomer's
can't
right.
rationalize
I think
it.
this can never be fixed. I think it's only a problem today is because we have so many EDH players, right? And we have social media to hear everyone's voices. But I think like there is no way for everyone to pop off at the table, right? And everyone
Someone's
is just
gotta
trying to make
lose.
themselves pop off, right? And then that is at the
Right.
detriment of the other three players. And then that's it, right? Like it is very hard for you to pop off but like not win the game and then be happy. You know what I mean? Like how do
Yeah.
you pop off with a Jewel
happens
Lotus
all
and not
Yeah.
not win the game, right?
You ban it. But like when I'm playing on stream, like almost every single game has everybody popping off and doing something. All the quickies, like it's not like I'm recording like 50 quickie games and then choosing the one where everybody got a chance to do something. It's just like that's like if everybody comes in with the right expectations and like those fast mana stuff is gone and like you all moderate your deck because you all go in with the same knowledge, then there's no problem whatsoever. Like you just like the rule zero is working, but like. If it's like pickup games, like you're not gonna get it that much.
Do
You're
you
gonna
know
get
how
it
hard
sometimes.
it
Like,
is?
what does that
And,
mean?
like,
So
why-
it means you
that's
like
so much
storm
work.
off, but then someone like fluster storms your grape shot, and then you're satisfied because you popped off, but you somehow didn't win. Like, what does it mean exactly for a normal pod to pop off but not win? Like you have to play creatures and attack, like the Richard pop off.
Yeah, you play an Dragon Tribal deck. You played a bunch of creatures. You blew up a bunch of stuff. You stole everybody's artifacts with like Mana Rocks, with Nuvara, Hellkite, and then you got shut down. But you didn't win the game, and people are allowed to recover.
Okay, so you took
Whereas,
in-game
like,
actions,
Yuriko just like
and they didn't
yeah.
win. But with a Jeweled Lotus pop off, you're not doing any action and you're dying. That's the difference.
because
right?
you just die.
The
The concern is non-games, right?
non-games.
But I mean, like I still just don't like I fully am for this. If somebody doesn't know and they just pick up their deck and they're like, you know what, rule zero, yada yada yada. Okay, well I know I'm not a CDH and I know I'm better than a starter deck. I'm going in there, and I get shut down by a bunch of hate pieces. I think that's fun. I think that's fine. Like I just don't understand. Like I think that's just the
unique.
problem I have.
That's a
How
Krim
is that-
specialty.
why is
'Cause
that
Krim is a
unique?
very happy person, right? Not the average person is not like that, right? You know what
That's
I mean?
also nobody will bat an eye if you do that in CDH, by the way, too.
But
Like, you
having hate pieces, I think there's a misconception too that's also getting furthered is that hate pieces are CDH. That's not CDH. Like CDH is very different.
Let
right?
me tell you,
Like,
CDH players
sure.
get salty when you stacks them too. Okay, like let's not
Yeah.
let's not pretend.
Also, CDH players are salty about Thoracle and will refuse to play it, and they'll play other things, even though Thoracle is the best thing to do. So if you're trying to make the most powerful deck, and that's like the interesting thing about CDH,
That's
just
the
on
misconception.
like a random tangent.
You're not trying to play the most powerful deck.
I know, they're not.
You just know those are the rules, and you're not shocked
Yeah.
when someone does that, right? And everyone
Yeah.
brings their garbage jank, thinking they can out metagame the Thoracle, right? So we have no solutions. So our solutions is to
Dan.
roll back Commander 5 years.
Yes.
How does Wizards sell
My-
cards though if you keep printing like boring
My
cards?
solution is ban it. My solution is
solution
ban
is
it.
still
You
more
could go.
hate cards.
You could go to standard route where you allow degenerate cards or like broken cards to be printed, and then in 2 years you ban them. I'd be like, that's enough fun. We've sold our packs.
How about this? I won't
Commander
say hate
Legends
cards.
2 comes
better,
out. What is the
better
chase
answers.
card that you want to see at the
Better
appropriate
answers.
power level?
Better answers.
5-color angel. 5-color angel that does something super super angel-y. And
That's
it's
like every
mythic.
standard set. Okay, next.
Yeah. How about
How are you gonna sell
better
packs
answers?
like that? That's too specific.
can
right?
sell- yeah, you
do
sell
a
answers with-
5-color mythic angel that's like all angels. Frickin' you attack with an angel, you put an angel on the battlefield, tapping, and
Edgar
it's
Markov for
indestructible
angels.
and lifelink. No, but that's Eminence, right?
I mean, they
You
could.
trick casuals to make it look like a powerful card, but it's actually not. That's the thing. You trick them.
I mean,
Bamboozle.
I think there's also like enough expensive commander cards now that they could just sell the set with reprints. Like put the Mana Crypts and the Vampiric Tutors and so forth. Like, do you even need a Jeweled Lotus to sell Commander Legends? Like, there's a bunch of $100 Commander stable reprints that you could put in that slot and probably sell it just as well. So I don't even know if you need to like have the Jeweled Lotus in the set.
So silver bordered, throw in some fetches and shock strategy.
I mean,
Yes.
Vamp Tutor was a big selling point on Commander Legends. How much was Vamp Tutor before it got reprinted? It was like something.
Like
It was,
90
I
or
think, it
something
was it like
insane.
100? I think it was close to 100. Although
it was
it's
last printed in
50
Visions
now.
or something. No, was that's not the latest?
No,
reprint?
EMA.
No, there was an
EMA.
Eternal
Eternal
Masters.
Masters.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, it was 140 basically, 35 before it was reprinted in Commander Legends.
Yeah, and then they printed it at a Mythic, so it's not gonna like tank the thing or anything. But like, yeah, that sold packs, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree with that proposal. Is you just pump out like the freaking reprints.
So,
And then print
so
cool,
Tomer
print
is
more
like 8 mana,
Obecas and, like,
unplayable
those-
angel. Seth is like throwing reprints. Krim, what's your call?
better answers. See, not hate cards, better answers. How about that?
So
Max
like a fatal push that exiles any creature or something.
Right, like give us a good, I don't know, fatal push adjacent card, but for commander, give us more answers, right? If you don't want stacks pieces, give us better answers so to deal with the situation. Or your opponent can only have like make X amount of mana this turn. Or, you know, like some kind of, so this way, like infinite storm off decks can't cast more than like more Eidolon or Rhetorics or something. I don't know. Answers, just answers, better answers. Fluster Storms, things like that. I want answers. I don't care about win conditions. I don't care how you win. I want to answer. Like for me, fun in Commander is solving the puzzle of how not to die. Not necessarily win, just how not to die. So that is so for those that like playing that playstyle, you give more answers, and also better answers can go into multiple decks. So if you're gonna make better threats, make better answers. You're gonna make better win conditions. You're gonna make more Jeweled Lotuses. Give us more answers to Jeweled Lotus effects.
Soul Ring that adds colored mana. No.
That's on a list
As for
of-
the color of your commander identity.
That's on a list of things we don't do.
Like, I don't like these staples that literally go. So we always do tier lists, right? And in the ideal world, every card is a C, meaning it's like good if you stick it in something with synergies and you can't just slap it into a random deck and like, you know, it's like an S, right? So like, you know, Fierce Guardianship is an S. You play blue, you just like chuck it in, your deck is better. I dislike those cards. If you had to print them at uncommon, please, not mythic. But I'd rather like weird angel thing that only angel decks play, and it'll be really good. But every
You
other
didn't like
deck
my idea.
would not want
What?
it. I was just teasing you, but you know, like very specific cards. Like, you know, this card is only good in mono white. Like maybe like War Room, right? Like it's really good in a specific type. Maybe questionably good, but like you can't just jam it in every deck. And I feel that's the problem with these staples, and these staples, because they go in every deck, become super expensive. And then, you know, there's like all these feel bads with it, but that's the more specific it is, the harder it is to sell it. Like how many angel lovers are there versus how many red players are there for Dockside, right? Like it's a lot harder to sell a mythic angel than it is to sell a Dockside, right? So I fully expect Wizards not to do any of this and keep printing universal
You
staples.
can literally just sell a product by doing reprints, right? Like there's so many expensive cards, so you just reprint Dockside at Mythic. I would much prefer just banning Dockside, but there's so many cards that you could just reprint at this
But that doesn't
point.
fix your issue that Dockside leads to unfun
Yeah, just
gameplay.
ban it.
Oh yeah, I
But
mean
okay,
you ban
so-
it, but you can't reprint it.
Demonic Tutor. How many expensive commander staples are there that we consider decent in terms of like everybody can agree like yes these are cool cards, but
Fierce
they're super
Guardianship.
expensive. You just
It is expensive. It's a cool card.
Okay, the Demonic Tutor, the most played cards: Demonic Tutor, Chaos Warp, Brainstorm, Eternal Witness, Lightning Greaves. You can do like crazy showcase frames for all of these. Blast and Sack, Heroic Intervention.
Secret Lair, $50 a card. Okay, next.
Yeah, okay, fine. But you can use the same tactic to sell any set.
But this
right?
just makes the
Any
format.
commander
If we're saying these cards lead to a snowballing format, making them more accessible just leads to higher variance games, right? At least now you can hope your opponent can't afford these cards and therefore they're not in your pod, right? But now they'll be everywhere.
I think the most egregious one should just get banned. Like, goodbye Dockside. Like, just do it. It's gone.
That card
Bye.
should go. That card should go.
Hello. And then the ones that aren't egregious, you can do like super duper special showcase, ultra rare.
We've seen this in standard
cold
Tomer.
etch.
Once you get rid of the egregious ones, the next tier becomes the egregious ones, and you never end, and you make alchemy instead.
But they're less egregious. Like, whatever the highest one is, like, there's no equivalent to Sol Ring Mana Crypt. Like, what? You're going to turn one... Like, I had this conversation with Jim from the Spike Feeders, and he's like, well, people who are running Sol Ring Mana Crypt, they'll just switch to green, and you can go turn one Wild Growth. But turn one Wild Growth is you spend your entire turn casting a Wild Growth, and now you have 3 mana on turn 2, whereas like Sol Ring or Mana Crypt, you could go Mana Crypt, cast my 3-drop, next turn I can cast my 4-drop. It's just like the next tier of stuff is so much lower and easily like answered compared to the higher tier, right? It does solve it, I think.
I mean, I think they should just kind of lean, like what Tomer said, in the direction of Weird Angels. Like in that, like, make vary the threats. If you're gonna make more Commander Legends, at least in that set, because standard sets are already doing enough, right? We have standard Modern Horizons, but the next Commander, the inevitable Commander Legends 2, just make very specific niche threats that can only go in like one deck. So like Anawan is a good rogue commander, right? It's not like I'm playing Anawan in my blue-black control deck. So just keep leaning in that direction, but make better answers at the same time to also help. Like, the ideal Commander Legends is very, very niche threats, better answers, and reprints. That would be the ideal Commander Legend set for me.
I like that.
What if we have Eminence stacks? Just like a Thalia, Eminence, Commanzo. The game just starts, everyone's like 2 mana
It's
behind.
Called
it's all slowed down.
Away. You make more
What's that,
wash-aways.
Azorius one? What's the Azorius one where it's like you can't make more mana than you have lands or something?
Oh, Lavinia?
Use that Eminence.
Oh, well, I mean, like, cards like things that can hate out Eminence would be fun. So they should do that, just because if Eminence exists in your pod, you should hate out Eminence, right? Have an answer for Eminence, essentially. Print something that gives an answer to Eminence.
That's so specific, though. Who would run? I guess if you really hate Edgar, you'd be like,
right? Like,
gotcha.
You want, like, how about that? Niche answers. Some of these cards that we now consider staple answers were very niche and random cards. Like, Fulminator Mage was trash when it got printed. I literally ripped those, threw it away. Modern made it good again, right? So, like, you kind of just... So a lot of the old hate cards that have existed, or that are existing now, probably weren't that great initially. So you kind of just make more corner pocket hate cards. Like Eminence, I don't know, it's a plus 30 mana cost to Eminence. So you hate out Eminence.
People don't like these cards, Chris.
So as a total aside, remember Command Fest? We went to a Command Fest in Vegas, right? Where it's just all pickup groups and pods. And it's like a huge area of people playing Commander. People seem net happy there. Like, it didn't look like people were having a miserable time. People were having a blast playing like pickup Commander pods, right? Like maybe it's something to do with like not enough players at your LGS, like you're not able to match up, or maybe it's like webcam, EDH, like people just get angrier over the internet, right? Like maybe something like that, or
it's
I don't know,
who you
right?
play with. Commander
But that's also the
is at the end of the day.
Yeah,
who
that
you
was
play
like
with.
2 or
was the
3. That was
before
pre-Dockside,
That
pre-Smothering
was
Tide,
pre-Fierce. Yeah, Fierce.
I think today
all
there'll
of
be like
these
all
things.
brawls happening in the Command.
No, people
People are very
are
upset.
gonna have fun. I don't want to be like doom and gloom, like I'm no longer having fun. Like, again, I love playing Commander Clash. I love playing Commander with you guys. I love playing Commander on my streams that I do weekly. I don't think, I can't remember a time that I had a negative play experience on the stream. The quickies that I'm doing, again, everybody gets to pop off and have fun. It's experience that I desire. So I'm still having so much fun playing Commander. It's just like pick up games.
But the pickup is how the majority of people play Commander, though, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where all these like power level discussions and budget is because of the fabled pickup game.
Somebody says, my deck's a 5, and then they go like turn 1 Mana Crypt into like Rhystic Study. Your go. It was like, all right, please. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's it for us. We don't have a I actually really like the
final
solution.
Verdict, I think, is just with everything going faster. Do we enjoy it? Like the cards that have been made, like the overall experience for Commander now in the year 2022. Are you happy? And I like so verdicts around the table. I think that'd be a good way to like close it.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought you were rolling back to 2015.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. We kind of talked about this before. Like, it's not like I hate Commander. I still enjoy playing Commander, and I mostly play on Commander Clash. But is it as good as it was a few years ago, in my opinion? No.
Okay.
I would say no as well. But I'm still having the most fun ever. And the fact, I think any issue I have is completely negated when I'm playing with a regular group that everybody already has like a good expectation.
Yeah, but we could play with rocks on the playground and be happy, Tomer. That doesn't count.
Yeah. So no, I would say I enjoyed the P4.
And Richard?
I enjoyed 2022 more, although it does have some problems, right? But I think net overall, it's better than 2015.
I love where we are as a format, and I love where it's going. I obviously there's always problems. There's rocky parts in love anyways along the way, and that's fully expected. Some of those problematic things and like in the relationship could be called maybe dockside extortionists. But the thing here is overall, I think the format has moved in a direction. I've learned to love Commander even more than I did in 2015. There's so much now, and the fact that they've I know that often people have just recently been like, I hate Commander, and Crim's just trying to troll and say the opposite. No, I genuinely love Commander in the direction and that it's going, and I think that it's gotten better. It's given me more answers, more versatility, more threats, more for every archetype I could ever play, and anyone could play.
Opposition agent,
as long as Opposition Agent single-handedly makes me love New Magic more than anything else. But legit, in all seriousness, outside of Opposition Agent, lots of things have made me very happy about Commander. There are some very dark spots and blemishes, but overall, very positive. So they can maneuver around some things, fix some things, but I think overall, I really enjoy where Commander's gone.
Sweet. I guess that means we have an even split. So again, viewers,
should put a poll.
Let us know.
2015 or 2022 Magic.
Sure.
In the comments.
Okay. Well, when this goes up, in the community tag, because we can't do a poll in the YouTube comment section. But if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, wherever, if you go to our YouTube channel at MTG Goldfish Commander. In the community tab, we'll have a poll, and you can decide there. And also let us know what your experiences are in your regular play groups if you have those, and in pickup games if you have those. Is it very different from something like what I experience or describe? Like, it's all anecdotal here. Like, the only thing that we have that's hard data is the fact that our games have been ending faster, right? Like, that's the only thing that is not subjective. That's the only thing. Everything else that we're talking about like just anecdotally, it can be different than your experiences. So let us know what you feel about that whole stuff. And we promise we'll go to something that's less controversial next week. Probably something about new cards that came out. Who knows? And that's it for everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. If you want to support the show, you can like and subscribe. And also, you can go to our merch store that I forgot to mention, but I'm mentioning it now. So if you want to support the show and want us to expand the channel, you can support us by buying the merch, the playmats, the deck sleeves, everything at the mtggoldfishmerchstore.com. And yeah, that's it, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.